will find you, and we will. It's not a tweet. That is not a campaign line. That was written into the foreword, signed by the president of the 2026 counterterrorism strategy for the United States, released 6 days ago. The president wrote that in the foreword, and they identified 3 groups as threats to America. 1, the cartels. 2, Islamic groups. 3, violent left-wing extremists, including anarchists and anti-fascists. That's new. Leftists. Listed in the counterterrorism strategy brief by the United States. President wrote, "We will find you and we will kill you." Signed, President Trump. Now let's be clear. Over the last decade, Center for Strategic and International Studies counted 152 attacks by right-wing extremists in the United States, killing 112 people. During that same time period, left-wing attacks, 35, killing 12 people. The threat category has killed 9 times more Americans is not in the document. Right-wing extreme terrorism is not named as a priority. Read that again. 9 times more deadly, and yet not listed. Counterterrorism strategy is supposed to follow the threat. This one follows politics. The surveillance, the watch list, the no-fly designations, the financial restriction tools, investigative authorities. All of this was built after 9/11. Here's the catch. It's now being formally redirected against Americans who are fighting fascism and the rise of fascism in America, as is our constitutional duty. So now people who organize against fascism, who organize for trans lives and trans rights, people who organize to support ending a genocide in Palestine, and the entire spectrum of community defense, people who are organizing against the stripping away of the Voting Rights Act, or the redistricting, the racial redistricting of communities around the United States, people who organize on those real issues that impact people's lives. Yeah, you might be a left-wing extreme terrorist who the president, in their own words, said they will hunt you down and they will kill you.
Right. So this video was a synopsis to an article that came out on the whitehouse.gov entitled the United States Counter-Terror Strategy. Right now, 17 pages. I was trying to find the page that she mentioned where they said we will hunt you down and kill you. There's got to be in here. I skimmed through it. Let me see. I'm gonna have to go back and stop her video to see exactly what page that was on, because I didn't see that part. But I said I skimmed through it. Okay, here it is right here in the page 3. Presidential forward. Our new USCT strategy is a return to common sense and peace through strength. As I said after our first successful counter mission, just days after I was sworn back in office, if you hurt Americans or are planning to hurt Americans, we will find you and we will kill you. All right. And as mentioned by the chick Portia, you know, no right-wing organizations are mentioned. And I mean, it's obvious to those who have ears to hear and eyes to see who the real culprit is. And the fact is, what's coming to this place is going to get very dark. You know, the things that are about to happen to this place and to you Americans. and ultimately to the world. And we as prophets of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah have been telling you this. All right, and before I continue, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to whom it rightfully belongs, which is Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Yahweh is who the world ignorantly calls God. Yahweh Shai is his son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, and there's no God beside them. Double honors to the elder apostles and the elder bishops of Great Millstone for being faithful witnesses to the Holy Spirit, and salutations to the elect whom the Lord have given ears to hear. All right, and this is not a shocker to us. We understand that times are coming, all right, that the world has never seen before. And ultimately, as the scriptures call it, it is the revival of the image of the beast. So as it is written in Revelation 13:11 on down, all right, that this devil is going to come down having great wrath. Let's grab it. So this is the book of Revelation 13:11. As a matter of fact, let's get it so where we can find some words. Right, Revelation 13:11 tells us, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. Right, so this other beast is America, all right, which is essentially a rebirth of Rome. He had two horns like a lamb, left and right, Republicans and Democrats, and he spake as a dragon, right? Because each side promises peace, but after that particular president comes out of office, the world gets that much more worse. And in return, the people riot, they protest, they proclaim their disapproval. All right, and now we're seeing, as it is written, better is the end of a thing than the beginning thereof. Right, so we're seeing that so-called peace talk was null and void. Now it says they spake. Let's look into that word "spake." Right, to utter a voice or emit a sound, to use the tongue or faculty of speech. Now we know in the scriptures tell us how this devil hides violence under his tongue. The scriptures also tell us how he speaks. The words that he speaks were smooth as butter, but inwardly they were drawn swords. So as we're at the end of this man, he's showing his heart's desires. Whereas in the word dragon, going to the word dracon, all right, this is a fabulous kind of serpent. This is a dragon, a serpent, great serpent, and a name for Satan. And there was also a, I was gonna say it here. There was also a lawgiver, not a lawgiver. Draco. I think that was during the time of the Greeks, if I'm not mistaken. Right. So Draco was the first recorded legislator of ancient Athens. Active around 621 BCE, he was commissioned by the citizens to replace an unreliable oral law system with Athens' first written constitutional and legal code. While his laws successfully shifted the power of criminal justice from private families to the state, They were so notoriously severe that his name inspired the modern adjective draconian. You see? It says abolition of blood feuds. This is interesting. It says one of Draco's primary goals was ending generational clan violence. His laws mandated that criminal cases must be settled by a state-run court of law rather than through private family vendettas. And when you read through that document, Trump was even saying that they're going to come after various states that's seeming like they're helping these various terror groups, right? And even the chick Portia was saying how they're pretty much going to treat American citizens that disapprove of their ways as terrorists. That's what that 16-page document was saying in so many words. Now it says, and he exercised all the power of the first beast before him and causeth the earth, and them was to dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose daily wound was healed. And whether you know it or not, you worship the Roman Empire, because America's system is set up after the Roman Empire, the first beast. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles, by which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image to the beast, which had a wound by a sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. So this is the time we're living in, to where all those that do not comply with this new system that's being set up should be killed. Now, the word killed, it says, goes into apoptino, to kill in any way, whatever, to destroy, to allow to perish. Metaphorically, to extinguish, abolish. Okay. It says to inflict mortal death, to deprive of spiritual life, and procure eternal misery in hell. All right. But to destroy. All right. And I've seen another video on TikTok. Let me see if I can find that one. It'd be so hard when you see a video on TikTok, because if you leave TikTok to look up something else, if you leave TikTok to look up something else, that video will be hard to find again. Okay, here it is. The Wadi Al-Bashim Yawashai.
Counterterrorism in America just changed forever. The federal government is about to use the same heavy-duty weapons against local groups that they have used for decades to dismantle global terrorist organizations like Hamas, Hezbollah. For a long time, there has been a massive gap between what a local detective can do on the street and what the federal government can do from Washington, but that gap is officially closing. President Trump is issuing a brand new national counterterrorism strategy that is specifically designed to tackle the rising threat of political violence within our own borders. If you have been watching the news and wondering why certain groups seem to operate with impunity, the answer often came down to a lack of legal authority. But that authority has now been unleashed. Think about how the Treasury Department goes after international cartels. They don't just put boots on the ground. They go after the bank accounts and the assets and the entire financial lifeblood of the organization. This new strategy brings those exact same tools to the domestic front. We are talking about the ability to apply the entire range of the federal toolkit, including IRS investigations and Treasury sanctions against domestic actors who cross the line from protest to violence. In the past, local law enforcement was strictly limited in what they could do because they simply couldn't access federal laws or specialized intelligence authorities. Detectives at the state and local levels have essentially been salivating for these tools because they know that following the money is the most effective way to shut down a movement. So,
Hey, and if you understand prophecy, you know where this is going to lead to, right? This is going to lead to a digital identification system. When you look at what's happening in Europe, that's something that's being implemented in certain parts. It's called the entry exit system. Like I said, I'm not going to we're gonna look that up after this actually. So let's let this play.
in the crosshairs of this new strategy, the focus is shifting toward violent secular groups and movements that have been causing significant unrest. This includes groups that voice opposition to capitalism or imperialism, and those using anti-fascist rhetoric or expressing opposition to government authority. But it goes even further than that. The strategy specifically mentions movements related to support for LGBTQ rights, environmental or animal rights causes, as well as pro-communist or socialist beliefs. Now, before you think this is about policing what people believe, the strategy makes a very clear distinction based on the First Amendment. You're allowed to believe whatever you want, and you are allowed to gather with people who share those beliefs. The federal government cannot and will not go after you for your ideology alone. However, the second that ideology leads to actual violence, you become a target of the entire federal intelligence apparatus.
We already know how that works. You know, a lot of times a peaceful protest can turn violent by paid actors. All right. So, hey, keep your eyes open for a terror attack, man. That's definitely coming because this devil has to provide reasoning for his actions. As we know, that's how he works, by problem, reaction, solution. All right.
This is where things get intense because once a group is targeted, they face the power of things like FISA warrants and the same investigative intensity usually reserved for foreign enemies.
So we also must understand that when we are targeted, our lives are going to be turned upside down. You know, this is how this devil moves. King David even spoke about how the enemy comes after him, how he sets traps. But we know eventually how about Shimei Shah is going to make a way for us to escape. Okay, but this is the reality.
Experts are pointing to successful models like Operation Economic Fury as a blueprint for how this works. When you disrupt the money, you disrupt the mission. Most of these domestic groups are not flush with cash, and they rely on constant streams of funding to keep their operations moving. By cutting off those streams and disrupting their recruiting capability, the government can have a massive impact in a very short amount of time. But there's a deeper reason why this shift is happening now. It involves our biggest global adversaries. It turns out that a lot of the unrest we see on American streets might not be entirely homegrown. There's strong evidence that countries like Russia and China and North Korea are writing the checks to foment this unrest. They know exactly which social and political issues stir up the most emotion in America, and they are using those issues to create instability and violence. This is a classic tactic during the...
Yep. So, you know, all enemies are going to be linked into one. All those who pretty much are not in league with what's coming, are not in league with the image, this new system that's being set up. All right. And I mean, for anyone with any understanding, you understand that this system is not set up to help you, but to destroy you. As a matter of fact, as this new system, this technocratic system is being set up, your jobs are being taken away. All right. And it's obvious who the problem is. So let me grab this. Oh, before that, so I mentioned before, let's see, EES. So the EES immigration system is the European Union entry-exit system. Is an automated IT system that officially becomes fully operational on April 10th, 2026, replacing manual passport stamping for short-stay non-EU nationals. It registers visitors' biometric data, travel document details, and entry-exit dates at 29 European borders to enforce the 90-day, 180-day rule. Okay? So, in other words, the is make they're applying their digital system to immigrants. So we know who's who. So it only makes sense that it's going to be pushed on American citizens and those pretty much all over the world. Okay, we got to know who's against us and who's for us. All right, which leads to Revelation 13 and 16. He calls of all, both small and great, rich and poor, to receive a mark in his right hand or in his forehead. All right, if you don't like that we keep bringing it up, you don't got to watch it. But lo and behold, it will come to pass as it is written. When it shall come to pass, you should know that a prophet was among you. Okay, so let's get this. I think Wisdom of Solomon 6 and 7. It was. All right, so Lakia, bear with me. Yeah, 6 and 4 through 6. I seen another video on TikTok that was saying that if you really want to go and come down on the CTs, then you would start at home. Going into the kids being violently taken advantage of, and those PDO, those files, you would go after that. But if they were to do that, they would expose themselves. But this is Wisdom of Solomon 6 and 4 through 7. Let's start at the top. The responsibility of rulers, right? Because Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai expects you to rule with equity. Hey, the scriptures speak on how the Lord is coming to judge with equity, meaning righteousness. So then you kings, you rulers, the world over, I guess it must be a typo. Listen to what I say and learn from it. You govern many lands and are proud that so many people are under your rule. But this authority has been given to you by the Lord Most High. He will examine what you have done and what you plan to do. You rule on behalf of God and his kingdom. And if you do not govern justly, if you do not uphold the law, if you do not live according to God's will, you will suffer sudden and terrible punishment. Judgment is especially severe on those in power. Common people may be mercifully forgiven for their wrongs, but those in power will face a severe judgment. Right? And the God of the universe, Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, is coming to do that. He's known as the judge. And it tells us that in 2 Ezra 16. Okay. Hey, just like who was it, Belshazzar? He thought shit was sweet until the writing was on the wall, pretty much telling him that his time is up. So, the fact that this devil was getting signs from the heavens, chariots are showing themselves. The fact that the prophets are out there is letting him know that his time is up. All right. And lo and behold, he's going to capture some of the prophets, and he's going to get front row seat to the spirit of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai. Just say it like that. You know? And it's going to be the same message. This is going to be up close and personal. All right. And as it is written, you know, I'm thinking about, who was that? Micah, when he was persecuted for telling the prophet, I meant the king, who was a king. I always forget that story. But it's a story about the how the Lord put a lying spirit in the mouth of his king's prophets. However, there was one prophet that just pretty much told it like it was. And you know, he was smoked for telling the truth. And he was saying, like, listen, I can't do nothing but tell you what the Lord tells me. All right. Hey, so if that, stay prayed up, you know, pray for strength, pray to be exactly where Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai wants you to be. And most importantly, pray for mercy. That you be in you know, under the, like the scripture saying Psalms 91. All right, under the shadow of the Almighty. Hey, so if that, shalom to the elect.